Alright, this is the video for the third session of our Shadowdark campaign. The previous session had ended with the party rolling aside the boulder and revealing the next room of the goblin cave that they had been in, where the goblins were conducting ritualistic sacrifices to something. Revealing this room gave the party a better idea what these things were sacrificing to, as this next room was full of piles of bodies stacked in front of these creepy demonic statues. I described them as having maniacal, laughing, monstrous faces and horns on their head, and I think because of my description of this room, and the players can kind of pick up on, the DM's talking really evocatively and creepily here, describing this room, so maybe we should be careful. If I recall correctly, they basically took one look at this room, and considering the attrition they had taken from the two fights with the goblins, and I think the priest had failed their Cure Wounds spellcasting check at this point, so they were without any healing. I think both of the priests had, because there were two priests in the party at this point. They decided to go back to the medicine woman's shack to rest, and then come back here the next day. And I explained to them, or I believe I explained to them, I hope so, that, okay, you can do that, it's a reasonable choice to make, but there will be chances for encounters on the journey to and from the medicine woman's hut, back to and from this cave. They said, okay, decided to go ahead with the plan to go back and rest. Of course, they hit a random encounter on the way back. I think this one I just did straight up roll on the Forest Encounters table in the Shadowdark core book, and they hit, I think it was 2d4 spiders, giant spiders, stringing webs across the path in front of them. I think that was the basically word-for-word description of the encounter that they hit. Now, I knew that, especially with them being somewhat wounded, one of the priest characters, now that I'm thinking about it, the NPC character, Merwina, on the cork board behind me there, she was extremely wounded. I think she might have had, literally, one... 1 or 2 HP left. So once I had telegraphed to them that there was something up ahead, aka spiders building webs across the path, they decided to leave the priest, the extremely wounded priest, just out of the fight entirely, back behind them. They were clearly hoping that the medicine woman would participate in the fight with them. And partially because I didn't see any real reason why the medicine woman would not help them. And then partially because I was worried about them getting absolutely demolished by this encounter. I said, yeah, sure, role-playing as the medicine woman, yeah, I'll help you out. Yeah, I'll help you out. And I think the stat block for the druid, she's level 7 or something like that. So I was like, all right, yeah, sure. I mean, these fucking spiders, they're tough. I think they're level 3. Which I think I rolled up 4, that there were 4 of them. And it, extremely deadly for a party of 3 second-level characters, because the 4th one, the wounded priest, wasn't even taking part in this fight. So So yeah, I allowed the medicine woman to go along with them. The thief scouted ahead, identified, like, there's some webs across the path that were, strung in a way that, like, you could almost walk right into them without even, like, seeing that they're there, very fine webbing, only, like, the sunlight catching them in certain ways even, like, lets you identify that there's a web across the path. And I had her make a wisdom check, basically like how you make a perception check in 5e, to see, depending on how well she rolled, I would say how many spiders she spotted. And she saw, I think she only saw one. She saw one spider that was, like, hanging over the path, like, directly over the path. Obviously, they know that there are more. And the way I determined it, once they got back and they got themselves in position and they initiated the fight, basically what I did is that because these spiders are, up in the trees waiting to ambush, I used a D12 to determine where on, like, the point of the clock the rest of the spiders were located, and then I rolled another die to indicate how far away from the center of the map that they were located. So I had one die that told me 1 to 12 o'clock, and then the other one how far from the center of the map, and they were all up in the trees. So they initiated the fight by attacking the one spider they could see. I then rolled to determine where the other spiders were in, like, the canopy in the tree branches. There were 4 total. The fight kicks off. The the medicine woman just completely, I don't think she really contributed at all, other than taking attacks, which helped, Don't get me wrong, that helped for sure. She had a lot of HP. But she, I remember looking at her stat block and I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah. She'll be fun. She'll be fun to use. She's got some stuff. She's got, she's got some action she can throw around. And on her first, like, offensive spell, I failed the check. And I think the only other thing she had to do besides that was, like, conjure a, like, a magic weapon that was, like, the equivalent of a +3 weapon, which I think her natural to hit was, like, +0. So she still only had a +3 to hit with this thing. And I think she missed the one and only attack she took with it. And then the spider, I think on the first hit they made against her, she failed her save. And spiders in Shadowdark, I think their venom puts you out, just drops you for, like, it's like 2d4 hours or something like that. Hardcore shit. So she's out. She's done. And then they managed to kill, I think, 2 out of the 4 spiders. Some morale check time. The remaining one, I don't remember if I rolled for them individually or if I rolled for them as a group. But either both of them failed or the one that had the medicine woman kind of in its clutches failed. So I ruled that a creature like a giant spider failing a morale check after it already has a victim in its clutches, essentially, would lead to the spider trying to flee with its victim, its food, basically. And with a thin webbing connecting this, like, cocooned victim. Like Shelob style in, like, Lord of the Rings, like, when it's, like, wrapping up Frodo real quick. That's basically what I had this thing do. And then it was trying to run up into the trees with, like, a thin single strand connecting it to the medicine woman, partially cocooned. I think one of the players asked if they could try to hit the strand of webbing to free the medicine woman. And I said, yeah, why not? I think I made them roll with disadvantage for the attack because, they're trying to hit a single thin strand of webbing, and they hit it. So they severed the medicine woman from the spider. I might have rolled on the spider's next turn to see what it would do. I do that a lot if I look at a situation in like a combat or something and there are multiple things that would be plausible for a monster to do. I just roll a die. And a lot of times I tell the players beforehand, like I'll roll in front of them and I'll say like, okay, on a 1 to 10 it does this, on an 11 to 20 it does that. Or if I think it would be more likely that it would do one action or the other, I'll say like on a 1 to 15 it does this, on a 16 through 20 it does that. And this spider, it came down and it basically just tried to grab the medicine woman again to run. That makes me think, actually, I probably didn't fail its morale check the first time. It was probably just trying to run with its bounty, because it's a wild animal. It's a creature. Like, it's not malicious. It's not, like, literally trying to kill the PCs just because it wants to kill them. It wants to eat them. And wild animals aren't really about having fights with things that can kill them. They want to get their food and leave. So I think it probably passed its morale check the first time, which is why I continued to try to grab its prey and leave. In the course of this, the second priest of the party, the only priest who was present in this combat, because they had left the other one behind, also went down to poison. But they managed to finish off the last spider. One of them might have ran. One of the spiders might have ran. But either way, they finished off or cleared out the spiders, went back to the priest they'd left behind, loaded up their paralyzed poison companions onto the donkey and horse, and made their way back to the medicine woman's hut. After a couple hours through the night, the two poison characters recover from their poison.